Hello and welcome. In this video, let's understand how Dapper parameters can protect us from SQL injection attacks. But first, let's understand how SQL injection attacks can be performed if we are not using parameters in Dapper. So basically, I have created a table users, and in this table, I will be keeping the users data. If I select this table, you can see this is having only username and password. Based on this username and password, we will be authenticating a user. Now let's see the Visual Studio setup also. Here again, I have created an SQL connection using this connection string, and I have written a very simple code. I am asking username and password from the user, and using that I will be creating an SQL query. And if you notice here, I am not using parameters. What I am doing here, I am directly passing the username and password to this SQL query and executing it on my database, right? And I'm using query first or default to execute this query, and I have created a simple class also to represent a user model. So it has the ID, username and password. If we don't find any user using this query, we will say you are not authorized, else we will greet the user and we will say hello, and we will print the username of that user. So first let's see if this application is working or not. So I will run my application, right? So let's try with Christopher, and I will hit enter. It will ask me for a password. Then I will enter a valid password for the Christopher. And once that is done, I will get the message hello Christopher, because I have provided a valid username and password. Let's try a negative scenario also. I'll rerun my application, and this time again I will give the username as Christopher, and I will give some wrong password, and I will hit on enter. I am getting the message you are not authorized. Basically our application is working fine, but let's suppose some hacker is trying to access our application. So what I will do, I will run my application again, and let's say I will enter any username. Let's say I will give some dumb username. So okay, right, so I have given some dummy username, and let me give some password. And here, while entering the password, I will try to inject some SQL. So basically I have entered this kind of SQL code here. Using this, the hacker can perform SQL injection. Let's see what will happen when I will hit enter. You see, when I hit enter, you can notice I am not getting that error message. Instead of that, I am getting this greeting message, hello John. So the hacker has successfully logged into our application. That happened because we were not using parameters, and because of that, hacker was able to do one SQL injection attack on our application, and hacker was able to log in to our application. Let's first understand how this happened. If I go to my SQL server, and I'll copy this query and I paste it here. So what hacker did, hacker passed down the username as dummy, right? And for the password, they have passed down some SQL string. Let me show you what they have passed down. So basically they have passed down this particular string. If I copy this string and put it in my password, you notice what happens. It will close this password where close here, and it will put an OR condition, and it says 1 equal to 1. Because it is a OR condition, and this condition will always be true, when we execute this query, we'll get all the users, and out of which the John was selected, right? Because we are using query first or default in our C# program. So guys, this is how hacker can manipulate your SQL queries if you are not using parameters. If you are directly passing the data which is coming from the UI, hacker most probably is gonna log into your application without having valid credentials. So let's see how we can avoid this SQL injection attack by using parameters. It's very simple. Instead of passing down the username and password like this, what we need to do, we need to use dynamic parameter. So I will change my query like this. So I will be using at the rate username at the rate password here. Now I can create a dynamic parameter object and pass down username and password. So this is my dynamic parameters and I'm passing down username and password here. And finally, when I'm executing query first or default, I will be passing these parameters here. Now let's try to do SQL injection again. Let's run the application. Again, I will pass some dummy username and again I will try to do some SQL injection. So for the password, I will pass this string and this time you can see SQL injection attack is not happening and application is properly giving us this message, you are not authorized. That's it for this video guys. In the next video, we will see what are the other different ways to pass parameter to SQL queries.